But Jod in episode 5, I mean, how good was it? We start off that episode and he's talking about like to Wim. Wim is just kind of down. He's on his own. And he mentions, I know you miss your parents or whatever, right? Like forget your parents. And that's kind of alluding back to was he taken as a kid by the Jedi? Like, is that why he had to forget his parents? And then 2, he goes on and says your focus determines your reality. So is that a thing?
Get a nice little callback.
Yeah, so I think that's so interesting there that it goes, okay, you get that hint, okay, he's potentially kidnapped by the Jedi as a child, and 2, okay, he's quoting Jedi things. So either he's really into the charade or he was at the temple for some time. And I loved that it started off that way.
Yeah. And it's really interesting too, because the way he talks about attachment though, like he kind of seems a Jedi, but the way he talks about attachment is also very Sith-like. Because he talks about it in a way that's like very like it holds you back. Not that it's like bad for you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the interesting things between the Jedi and the Sith is that they both don't like attachment, but for very different reasons.
Right. Yeah.
And so I wonder, could he have had run-ins with both? Like, could he have been on both sides at some point? And now he's like, none of these guys are working out for me. I'm striking out on my own. Man, I am going to be really curious to find where his experience with the Force has been and what groups he's been aligned with.
Especially since he's not just like, because at first the question was, is he using like the magnetic things? Is he really using the Force? And it's like, no, he is. But is he actually that into it? And then he's just like making stuff float around and everything, seemingly at will at this point when he needs to. So I think he's not just a nobody at this point. I don't think that's kind of where they're going to go, and not in like a negative way. When we talk about like Rey nobody, things like that, that's not what we mean. We're talking, is his character going to be one of, past significance, or is he just a guy that knows the Force? I think it is probably going to be one of past significance is the way that it kind of is shaping up there.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's a Jedi Order survivor, or if he even left before all that went down. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he became an Inquisitor, right? And left that too. Like, I feel like there's a lot of pathways that'd be really interesting for him. Because somebody had mentioned that on one of the comments a few weeks ago, and I hadn't thought about that. But he says some things that are very not Jedi-like. And it may just be that he's done with the Jedi,
Yeah, and I think if you compare him, I think the easiest comparison, obviously, of his age and kind of what we've seen is a Balin skull, right? So you compare him to Balin, who is very much in the Jedi Order and just survived getting out. Yeah. He's still like, he says some Sithy type things, some dark side things, but by and large, I think you look at him in that gray to light side area with the way he carries himself, the way he says things. He's not just like inherently evil, right? It's kind of along the lines of how Count Dooku carried himself, but not that far. And so you see that very much so Balin was in the Order for quite some time, and that was his life. You don't see that in Jod quite yet. So it does make you wonder, like, did he get out early? Is he actually like trained a little bit in the dark side? What's the deal there? I think that's still a question that needs to be answered for me after episode 5.
And I would say one of the, just bringing up differences between Balin and Jod, like Balin was so straightforward, right? Yeah. He was not there to mislead anybody, whereas Jod is about as deceptive and consistently lying as you can possibly be. Yeah. So Jod doesn't carry any sort of that sense of honor or that sense of like, I'm going to be straightforward with you that we kind of saw with Balin. So.
Yeah, he's the least straightforward person in maybe any Star Wars media we've ever seen, because he is just. But again, it's just that's the fun part of the question is you get glimpses where is he fooling us? You know how he goes around just fooling everybody. Are we also being fooled? And I hope that's the case. Like if you can build that character up to where the audience doesn't know either, you've done a really good job at it. So A+ writing for Jod, in my opinion.